Hello and welcome. Hi, wherever you are. Thank you for joining today. I know you have a lot on your plate, so I'm really grateful that you've chosen to spend your time here with me today. Excuse me, I'm still getting over a cold. The topic that I'm sharing on today is about navigating dual identities at work as a first-gen Latina. And today's session is specifically designed for high-achieving Latinas who are grappling with dual identities, Latinas who want to develop as influential leaders, Latinas who want to increase their visibility, and Latinas who want to increase their confidence while maintaining their authenticity and fully embrace their Latinidad at work. If this is you, go ahead and just comment Latinidad in the comments. Let me know that you're here. You know, I'm always wanting to build comunidad, so make sure that you're also connecting with others on here. This is an opportunity for you to expand your network and to get to know other Latinas who are possibly going through similar situations. I really, truly believe that we can all learn from each other. If you're listening in, you can also share this event by clicking the blue share link and then messaging your amigas or compañeras or comadres or whoever. And if you don't fit any of those descriptions and you want to jump off, feel free to. There's no obligation to stay on. My feelings aren't going to get hurt. But of course, you're welcome to stay. But I also want to be really respectful of your time because I know that there are a lot of competing priorities. Let me introduce myself. I'm Ruby Garcia. I'm a leadership coach and hypnotherapist for high-achieving first-gen Latinas. I'm also a daughter of immigrants. My parents, my mom is from Guadalajara, Mexico. My dad is from Mexico City. And they came to the United States, I don't know, like about 50 years ago. My dad passed away in a car accident when I was 1 year old. And so by the time I was 2, my mom remarried to an American man. So I always like to kind of joke that I was raised by a Mexican mother who loved listening to Los Bukis and Los Temerarios and Ana Gabriel while we cleaned house on Saturday mornings. And my American stepfather would listen to like Eric Clapton and Blondie and Fleetwood Mac on Sunday mornings while cooking brunch. So I definitely grew up straddling these two different worlds. And I definitely understand the challenges of feeling ni de aquí and ni de allá. I was too Mexican for my American family and too American for my Mexican family. I don't know. Maybe some of you can relate. Maybe. I'm also the eldest daughter of 4, and that is a whole nother event for another day. But you know that as a daughter of immigrants, being the eldest, there's also a lot of added pressure and responsibilities. Growing up, I was one of the only Mexicans in my high school in my class of 700. And that continued throughout most. And when I say Mexicans, it was really Mexicans because there wasn't even diversity in Latinidad. And that continued into most of my academic and professional career. I wasn't only a first-gen college graduate, but a first-gen corporate professional. And so I spent about 20 years in sales and sales leadership roles before pivoting to leadership development and coaching about a decade ago. Funny story, today is actually my 9-year anniversary since leaving corporate. So I didn't even realize it. And Facebook reminded me of that memory this morning. So that was kind of wild to see. But, you know, I've really made it my personal mission to contribute to the advancement of Latina leaders. And the reason why is because I did not have the knowledge, I did not have the tools, I did not have the resources. And so it made navigating corporate spaces very difficult for me. And I'm saying corporate, but this could also apply to government or private sector or even nonprofit higher ed. I think there's very similar stories here. And so I really made it my mission. I want to fast track other Latina leaders so they can achieve their goals and aspirations, generate wealth, whatever it might be. And so most of the time I'm doing this through one-on-one leadership coaching, breakthrough hypnotherapy sessions, and then facilitating culturally relevant leadership program. And you can learn all about that on my LinkedIn page. And, you know, if you want, you can book a call with me. It's up in my bio. But let's get started on today's topic and the reason why you're here. And I'm going to start with the infamous words of Becky G, who said that being a Latina in America often means being 200%, 100% Latina and 100% American, living at the intersection of two vibrant yet very distinct identities. And thinking of this, the duality can present some really unique challenges and opportunities, especially in the workplace. Some of you might have seen 2 weeks ago, the Pew Research Center came out with a new study in an effort to really understand the experiences of Latinas. And what it highlighted was some of the pressures that Latinas are facing in the United States. So, some takeaways from that study: more than half of Latinas say they feel pressure to provide for their loved ones at home or to succeed in their jobs. Maybe that's you. Latinas feel cross-pressured in other ways too, as they juggle cultural expectations around gender roles rooted in Latin America, and those also rooted in the US. So it's kind of like double whammy, right? You feel the pressure of your traditional ways, but then you also feel the pressure of the standards of, and expectations being here in the United States. And the majority of Latinas say they feel pressure to do housework, to be beautiful, start families, and at the same time to achieve success in their own right, whether it be through academics or a career. So we inherit a lot of pressures externally from our family and community. I don't know about you, but I am really not surprised by any of this, because this is the topic that often comes up when I'm coaching Latinas or I'm working with high potential Latina leaders or entrepreneurs. It's kind of this tug of war between maintaining traditional values and developing, developing new identities, understanding, that these two things are kind of in conflict, right? It feels like a tug of war, or it can feel that way. And sometimes we think that that it's like one is either good or bad, right or wrong, and we have to pick one or the other. They're polar opposites. And a lot of times the traditional values that we've been raised with are also in direct conflict with the way that corporate workplaces run, or just professional workspaces in general. I don't know if you relate to this, but if you feel this, if you feel this tension, if you feel this struggle, this kind of tussle going on, drop feeling it in the chat so I know that this applies to you, because it certainly applied to me. Many Latina professionals grapple with reconciling and integrating their identities in the workplace, because these two identities or belief systems just seem to entirely clash. Excuse me. One of the places that I see this the most is with the Latino value of humility. It's deeply ingrained in our culture and the way that our family teaches us. And it can be a huge barrier in situations that really demand self-promotion, things like job interviews, annual reviews, salary negotiations, building your brand. And it can really hinder you from future opportunities, whether it be in your career or even financial opportunities. So I want to just share a personal example to see, so that you can see how this kind of plays out. And let me know if you relate to this. So this was back in, excuse me, in 2010. And I was offered an internal promotion at my company. I was really excited. It was a big role, a big jump. HR sent me this really generous offer letter. And when I saw the numbers, y'all, I cried. Tears literally came out, because I thought of my mom, who is a Mexican immigrant. Like I said, she has a third grade education because she had to start working in a tortilla factory by the time that she was 9 years old, so she could help contribute to her family's financial needs. And so she made so many sacrifices in her life so she could give me a better life. So seeing this letter was like, wow, like holy cow, like I've made it, right? This is next level. My mom, I don't even think she could dream of this number on there. And then you'll never guess what happened. The HR representative retracted it. She didn't retract the offer, but the salary. And what she told me was that she had made an error and it was too much of a jump based on my salary history. Okay, that's a key component of this. She said it was too much based on my salary history. And I was kind of confused and I was caught off guard and I didn't know what to do. Again, I'm first gen, I just had no idea. I didn't want to seem like I was difficult. I didn't want to seem like I was asking for too much. I was always taught to be grateful. And, after all, hey, this was still a really good offer. It was still considerably more than I was making. And so I just kind of relented and I took what she gave me without question, because I didn't know what else to do. I just didn't have the knowledge. And some of the thoughts that had gone through my head were like, no one has jumped from my role into that role ever before. So I'm making this huge leapfrog move and I should just be thankful for it. Just be grateful. I'm not as accomplished as other people in the role, so maybe it makes sense that I'm paid less. Hey, like I should just be grateful, right? Like they picked me out of all the candidates, they picked me, and this is going to keep me humble and hungry. Well, in reality, I deserve that role. Like I earned that role, and I'll tell you why. I had applied for that role previously, and I was told that I had a lot of potential, but I wasn't quite ready yet. And so I talked to that manager and I said, well, what would it take to be ready? And he gave me feedback, and I took that feedback very seriously. I committed myself to growing in all the areas that he mentioned. And I was very intentional about it. I worked with my current leader to do that. And by the time I reapplied and interviewed, I was ready to take on those new challenges. And at the end of the day, I still let that little voice in my head like get in the way. And I started saying, do I really belong here? Do I really deserve this? Like, maybe this is a fluke. Maybe I just got lucky. Maybe they just like me. And all these other scenarios were going on in my head. And that self-doubt, that lack of knowledge, which was a huge component of it, that imposter syndrome ended up costing me more than $15,000 from the original offer to this is the one that I ended up taking. And it was a way more than 15,000 when you think of the impact that it had on my raises, on my bonuses, on like management incentive bonuses. But you know what? I learned from that mistake. And I promised myself I will never, ever let that happen again. Never. Right. And I share that not to really dwell on the past, but so if you ever find yourself in a similar situation, you're not going to make the same mistake that I did. So I want my story to be a reminder to you to trust in your worth, to trust in your capabilities, to advocate for yourself, and don't ever, ever underestimate what you bring to the table. In addition to one of the gaps was like not being able to advocate for myself. But the other gap was the lack of knowledge that I had about negotiations. And by the way, let me pause. I forgot to tell you, if you have questions, I put them in the chat because at the end, I'll go ahead and answer questions. So what I was saying was one of the gaps that I had besides not advocating for myself was the lack of knowledge about negotiations. I actually didn't even know that you can negotiate. I know it sounds silly to me now because I hear so much about it, but I actually had no idea that was a thing. I thought you just took an offer, they gave you an offer and you took it, right? And that's what you're grateful for. I didn't actually know it was a thing. But even more so, I didn't know that you negotiated based on the market value of the role. And what she told me was it was because it was the HR rep had told me it was because it was too much of a salary jump, which my past salary should not have made a difference because, again, it was market value of the role. And if I would have known that, this could have been a completely different conversation. So I lack that knowledge. And please tell me I'm not alone here. If you've ever felt like everyone else knew the rules, how to play the corporate game, and you've been left out, like, let me know that. Type in the chat, hey, Ruby, you're not alone, because I really felt absolutely clueless. And I was really embarrassed too. I felt a lot of shame around it. And I was really scared they would retract the offer completely. So yeah, let me know if I'm not alone here. So that taught me a lot. Navigating these types of situations requires a deep understanding that cultural values and qualities like humility, for example, aren't necessarily good or bad, but it's just about being contextually appropriate. So as a leader, it's great to be humble when you're asking for help or feedback, when you're learning something new, when you're considering various perspectives from maybe like different team members so that you can make better informed decisions. It's great to have humility in those cases. Humility is not helpful when you're asking for a raise, when you're applying for a new job, when you want to get promoted, when you want to expand and scale and grow your business, or when you're developing your brand. That's not the time to be humble, okay? So, one of the most significant challenges is shifting our mindset around what we've been taught versus doing it in a way um, in corporate that still feels authentic and aligned in a corporate setting. Excuse me. So there's a process of learning, unlearning, and reframing that goes on when I'm working with when I'm working one on one with my clients, because some beliefs, as you know, are so deeply embedded in us, in our culture, in our belief system, that those run on autopilot. And when you're running on autopilot, that means you aren't being intentional or strategic. You're just you're doing things by default. So I want to give you another example of how this can kind of play out at work with kind of the hard worker narrative that we've been taught, and specifically the problem with being a hard worker. And yes, I said the problem with being a hard worker. So I was talking recently with an individual who had interviewed for a new role within her company, and she was passed up for a promotion. No surprise, like we've all heard this story probably. Maybe some of us have even experienced it. And she's like slaying, right? Like she's exceeding KPIs, she's mentoring others, she's an SME on her team, subject matter expert. She is a top 1% performer in her organization. So she like went to the annual trip that they give, and she was passed up for this opportunity. Now, no one is arguing that she isn't a hard worker, right? Or that she's definitely proven herself to be very good at her job, even excellent, I would say, in her job. But here's what, as I started to talk to her, here's what I learned in speaking with her was she didn't have any mentors or sponsors whatsoever. She hadn't been intentional about cultivating her personal brand, not online nor in person either. She hadn't been strategically networking within her organization. She was nervous about how to tell her story. And she just, it was very, because she kind of gave me her pitch and it was just kind of a little bit all over the place, not very organized. And so she wasn't able to demonstrate the impact of her work and the breadth of what she was capable of achieving. And up until that point, when she applied for the role, she hadn't even been vocal about her future career goals. And then lastly, she had really just been focusing on the tactical piece of her work. So she was like in the weeds, doing the work, doing the job, doing really well, rather than looking at it strategically. So like from a bird's eye view, right? Which was really a huge piece that she needed to develop for the role that she wanted to be in. She had to see things from a strategic level, not just a tactical, because it was more of a leadership type of role. And, if you have read any of my content before, I've talked about some different cultural archetypes or scripts. So she's who I would call like a hardworking head down Juana. She has been focused on getting results. And so she's failed to see the bigger picture. Her problem isn't just visibility. That's a huge problem. But it's in addition, it's not knowing how to tell her story in relation to the role that she really wants. So if you want to accelerate your career, you need to be known and seen for your contributions. Your goal is to get benched or slotted for that role because you've already been in conversations, you've already been working towards that next step before there's even an opening on the team, right? Like you're already out there making it happen, even if there's not a role. And you have to be able to demonstrate your competency. That's really important, is demonstrating your competency, that you have the abilities and skills and knowledge to do that job. You have to be able to demonstrate your confidence, because if you don't believe in yourself, no one else is going to believe in you either. And you have to show them that you have the potential. So those are really important, but you also can't forget all around networking, right? So you need allyship, you need mentorship, you need sponsorship. You need to build a strong personal brand so you become the go-to person. You are the person that has that expertise that's a solution to this other team or the work or whatever it's aligned to. And you have to have the ability to be able to articulate and your value and to be able to tell your story. The big thing is you have to own your accomplishments. This is a big gap that I see. You have to be able to show and not just tell. You have to be able to show. Like Missouri's the show me state, right? I had a coach that was from Missouri. That's what she always used to say is you have to show people the impact that you make. So, what are metrics around that? How did you save the company money? How did you generate income? How did you increase productivity, save time, right? All these different things. And then you've got, like I said, you've got to be confident, because if you don't believe in yourself, no one else is going to believe in you either. So you got to have that confidence, especially when it comes to salary negotiations. And I would even venture to say you have to have a generous dose of courage. Excuse me. So if you want to accelerate your career, you need to be seen and known for your contributions so that you're attracting the right opportunities as opposed to chasing them. You want people saying, hey, like, I'm going to have a team opening on my team, or I'd love you to move over to my team, right? When I left my organization 9 years ago, I had other people saying that and opening the door and saying, hey, like I'd probably find something for you if you want to stay. I chose not to because I felt myself going in a different direction. But you want to have the options, right? You want to attract those opportunities. The other thing I want to say is don't leave it to your boss to open doors for you or wait till you see that job posting. It's your career, which means it's your responsibility. You are the CEO of your own life. You are the CEO of your career. So you have to take proactive action. And I just want to say kudos to you, because if you're here, you came to learn something so that you can excel, so you can feel confident, so you have more knowledge, so you put knowledge into action to make you more powerful. So I just want to, pat yourself on the back. Kudos to you. Give yourself a high five because you're doing the thing. Before I start diving into cultural strengths, I have one more kind of last story I want to emphasize. And I mentioned it a little bit up above or previously with the last story that I told, but I want to emphasize it because it's something that I see time and time again. Like it is such a common reoccurrence, and it's something that really holds us back. And that is that we do not allow ourselves to be seen or to be visible, or we're afraid of being seen or visible. And there's a lot of reasons why this might happen. It could go back to that cultural narrative of humility or the cultural value of humility. It might go back to childhood stories where we perhaps were in some type of physical danger of being exposed. For example, if you came from a family that was undocumented, you might have grown up not wanting to draw attention to yourself because that could be a risk. Or maybe your family decided it was best to assimilate so that you could fit in. It could be that maybe you were just taught to keep your head down like me. God forbid, you don't want to seem presumida, so you don't ever say anything about your accomplishments. You don't want to be seen as a bragger. You don't want to be seen as narcissist. You don't want to be seen as self-promoting because ¿qué va a decir la gente? You know what I'm talking about, right? Like, ¿qué va a decir la gente? Oh my gosh. As Latinas, we need, and I can't emphasize that enough, we need to be seen. We are underrepresented, we are undervalued, and we are underpaid. Let me remind you that we are paid 52 cents on the dollar compared to our non-Hispanic white male counterparts. So there's a huge pay gap too. And there are a lot of misconceptions about who we are as a comunidad. So it's not only important to increase representation, but it's also important that we're the ones that are telling our stories, that we're shaping the narrative. Because if we don't do that, we allow others to make assumptions and create their own stories to fit their own narratives and so on. And to give you some context about, the amount of power we have and where we're at, Latinos right now account for about 62 million of the U.S. population. We make up the fifth largest GDP, and we're the third fastest growing economy in the entire world, Only China and India are growing faster. Okay, so that gives you a sense of the economic power that we have and the numbers. We have power in numbers. And then Latinas account right now for about 17% of all adult women in the US. So we're about 22.2 million. And our population has actually grown by 5.6 million in just the last 12 years. Not to mention the fact that we're building businesses faster than any other demographic, about 6 to 7 times faster. But again, we're under resourced and underfunded. We have an obligation to ourselves, to our families who made sacrifices, and to the next generation to be visible and to be seen. I hear you. I know what you're asking already. Ruby, isn't that the same thing, to be visible and seen? Well, no, it's not. There really is a distinct difference between the two. So I want to tell you what they are, because I think this is really important. Visibility is all about putting yourself out there. It means like you're showing up and people know you because you're taking up space. You're claiming your own space. You might be attending networking events. You might be active on LinkedIn. People bring you up in conversations. Like even what I'm doing now, like, hello, welcome to my TED Talk. I haven't been on a TED Talk. I haven't been invited to a TED Talk, but I'm doing it right now on my own version on LinkedIn, right? This is visibility. I'm showing up. I'm putting myself out there. Being seen, on the other hand, is about your contributions being recognized and valued. It's about your unique perspective, not just being heard, but also being really listened to and respected, even sought after. So, for example, when that study came out from the Pew Research Center, NPR actually reached out to me for an interview about that study, right? And that was not me, chasing down that opportunity, but they reached out to me because I had the visibility and I was being seen as a thought leader in this space. So the important thing to know is you need both. You need to be seen and you need to be visible. Visibility is going to get you on the map, and being seen is going to give you the power to influence and make greater impact. So here's the question that I have for all of you. And I want you to really think about this, is especially for those of you that are really struggling with this visibility and being seen, and que va a decir la gente, and who am I, and whatever other thing that you're telling yourself. I want you to ask yourself, what is the story that you're telling yourself about being seen or being visible? What is the story that you're telling yourself about being seen or visible? Because I know, just from conversations, from DMs, from even content that generates conversations, excuse me, I know that many of you want to advance in your careers. I know that you want to make impact. You want to write books. You want to write on LinkedIn. You want to be seen as a thought leader in your field. Some of you are sitting on golden nest eggs. You have like ideas, waiting to burst through. You have businesses that you want to launch, but you're not moving. You're not in action. You're just waiting until it's the right time, or you get it perfect, or you have everything laid out to you before you start showing up. And that's your biggest barrier. It's you against you. You let fear, you let imposter syndrome, self-doubt, self-sabotage drive your decisions because you have some story about being seen or being visible. Believe me, I could go on and on about this topic because I am really passionate about it, and it could be a future live stream event. But what I want to say is that it's really important that we show up, that we're using our voices, that we're, at the table where decisions are being made. Just to give you an example, ASE put out released a white paper last week, and I want to make sure that I'm saying this correctly. So let me look at my notes here. But it was with, Patricia Mota, who is the CEO of ASE, and Dr. Cindy Gordon, who is a very prominent figure in the AI space. And they conducted a live virtual hybrid event where they asked CDOs, so Chief Diversity Officers, officers. They asked how many chief diversity officers are sitting on an AI data governance risk council. And out of 50 organizations, it was 0. Do you know what a problem this is? Do you have any idea how much bias can exist within the AI space? We have to be in the game. And if we aren't showing up, others are going to be making decisions that impact us and our families. So I'm super passionate about this. We need to take up space. If being seen is your issue, like get on my calendar, schedule a call with me today, because it's an area of expertise for me. It's something that I work very, very closely with my clients on, is, developing safety and developing their personal brand, but really developing that safety around being seen. So anyways, I want to kind of move on, because I know we're moving into the half-hour mark, but as Latinas, we bring a ton to the table. We have typically I believe we've typically gone into situations with a deficit or scarcity mindset, but we have cultural capital, folks. We have lots of cultural capital, and we bring so much from our cultural backgrounds that maybe haven't previously been recognized as assets. And that's what we're going to talk about here. So we can really leverage our Latinidad for success in the workplace. So I love, if you haven't seen America Ferrera, she's one of my heroes, and she has a great TED Talk. But in it, like, you can check it out on YouTube or whatever, but in it, she says that our identity isn't a problem, it's our superpower. And I completely agree with her. So I want to point out a couple of those superpowers. This is just a couple of them, and we can talk about more later on, or if you want to know more, reach out to me. But one of them is collectivism. So it's really that, kind of we spirit. We make great leaders because we think about our teams. How can the team win? How can I support my team members? How can we get the best results with the teams? As Latinas, you create unity within your teams, and you drive that collective effort towards the goals. Latinas are also really relationship driven. We like to get to know people. We don't want to just know about work stuff, but we want to know what drives them, what's important to them outside of work. We care about the whole person, right? We're interested in knowing more about where they're from, their families. We are focused on long-term, more sustainable, more intimate relationships rather than transactional one or done. And when you have that in work, that's definitely going to, in the workplace, you're going to be able to increase employee engagement and retention. We have things like empathy and collaboration. As Latinas, we care about each other, right? We lead with empathy, and we can transform the paradigm of this, kind of patriarchal leadership, where it's more about dictating and adhering to rules than, and it's also really very me-centric, rather than being in the spirit of collaboration, which is something that we can do really well. The fourth one is respeto. And I wrote about this actually in my in a colleague and my friend Refugio Atilano's book, the Latino Leadership Playbook, which I highly recommend you check out. Respect is big in our culture, and I know one of the things that my mom taught me was that you treat everybody the same. You treat the janitor who's cleaning out your garbage cans in the office the exact same way that you would treat the CEO. You treat every single person with dignity and respect because they deserve it regardless of title. And that really drives a culture where everyone's voice can be heard and respected, even if there's differences. And then the last one for now that I'm going to mention is just orgullo, or pride. So having a strong sense of heritage that can, that really inspires you, it really gives you a strong sense of identity and purpose. And this can be really motivating in order to drive positive change and advocate for diverse perspectives, to be able to give back. And we know there are countless studies that show that diversity is good for profits, and it drives innovation. One second here. Y'all on my spiel. Drop those questions in there. I'm going to get those soon. Uh, so I know that navigating dual cultures can seem like a setback, especially if you're first gen and you don't have a blueprint for how to navigate the corporate world. My mom's advice to me when I got my first corporate job at, I think 19, was stay humble, work hard, keep your head down, don't rock the boat, just be grateful. Like, you don't have to work a factory job, right? And while it was well meaning, very well intentioned, that advice only took me so far. And I had to learn to navigate the workplace. I had to learn how to self advocate. I had to learn how to build a brand. I didn't even know what that was up until probably about 10 years ago, if I'm quite honest with you. I had to know how to find a mentor, not just a mentor, but a sponsor, because there's a difference. And I had to really think about, how is my culture impacting the way that I'm showing up at work? And truthfully, there were some times that it really, really limited me. It really hindered me. So I had to unlearn, learn, and I had to reframe my mindset. And I also started to see how my unique experiences actually could be a valuable perspective, because there was a time where I even was a little bit embarrassed about being first gen, or that my experiences were different. And different doesn't mean wrong or bad. It just means that we see things a different way. Um, our Latinidad is cultural capital, and it gives us an ability to relate to diverse audiences. And that is definitely a competitive advantage. It's not even, we're moving into a global world. We are a global world, right? So going back to what I said earlier, it's not about either or, good or bad, new, old, right, wrong, whatever the paradigm is, but it's more about integration. Kind of like I said, I grew up listening to Los Bookies and Eric Clapton, and in some ways it was the best of both worlds. And in a lot of ways, it's kind of the same thing here. So what I want you to take away is, as Latinas, we don't have to give up our values, but we can be intentional about how and when we want to leverage them. We can also decide, hey, some of this does not serve me whatsoever, and I'm going to bless and release it, right? And there are other things that maybe really ground us, and they do nurture us and allow us to grow. And so we keep that, and we keep feeding it and nurturing that. And this is what I actually believe to be one of the strengths of Latinas today, is that we are redefining what it means to be a modern day Latina. And it may not look like our mommy's version of success. Y está bien, that's okay. So I want to just kind of close out by giving you some advice or some suggestions on what to do, steps that you can do, really practical steps. One is to really think about identifying what narratives, cultural narratives in particular, are holding you back. And look with curiosity, look without judgment. Just get curious about them. Where did those stories come from? How was that story created? Was it something in your childhood? Was it something that you said? Is it serving you? Is it holding you back? What could be a new, more powerful story that will actually serve in your best interest? Number two is finding supportive communities and mentorships within and outside of your current workplace. And ERGs are a great place to start if you have one in your company. But I also highly recommend professional associations, because there's a great sense of belonging. These are people who have gone through similar situations. It's also great for your professional development. Some of my personal favorites are, of course, ASE, because I've had a long-term relationship with them, and it's been absolutely wonderful. Alpha, Prospanica, Shippy, Latinas in Tech, Lean in Latinas, Latinas United, I think is another one. There's so many, right? So pick one of them, get involved, go to a couple of them, see what fits you best. And the third thing is just like, start embracing your Latinidad. Like, your background and perspective are super valuable in the workplace, and even more now, we need more diversity in thought and experience and perspective. So, remember that you bring that. And I want to say with that too, like, like release the pressure of feeling like you have to fit in. Release it, right? Like I showed up today with my red lipstick, with my hoops, right? Like because I'm my curly hair, because I'm like, I'm bringing myself, I'm bringing all of me. Um, Release yourself from the pressure of trying to fit in, and be brave enough to stand out. Be brave enough to stand out. So it's really about integration. It's about bringing the best of both worlds to work for you and to be leveraged as an advantage. So I would love to hear some feedback on today's event. If this resonates with you, if you have questions, I'm going to look through those now. If you are ready to up level, to leverage your cultural strengths, embrace your identity, all of it, like, right, then, book a call with me to see if we're a good fit to work together. The link is in my LinkedIn profile. And, I work with my clients over a 3-month period. We get into the nitty gritty of what's holding you back. We look at leveraging your strength. We cover things like imposter syndrome and your, behaviors of self-sabotage. And I even bring hypnotherapy in if it's needed or something you want to try. Those are all things that, we can look at. But, again, I really appreciate your time in being here, because I know that there's a million places that you could be, and you decided to show up here. So thank you again for your time. I'm looking at questions here. So let's see what we have. And feel free to email me too. Let's see. Can you share best resources, information, books, blogs to use to help navigate dual identities? Ooh, that's a really good one. I mean, I definitely write about it very often. I have not seen too many about navigating dual identities. However, my business name is Napantla Solutions. Napantla is an indigenous word that means the space in between. It was coined by a Chicana feminist author, and she does write quite a bit about living in between dual identities. Her name is Gloria. I'm gonna destroy it. Andezlua. Oh, either way, she wrote Borderlands, and oh man, I just got another book from the library. I was trying to look for it here. I can't remember the name of it, but I will email. I'll create a post about it, or I'll email you, Diana, on that one, because that is a great question, and I actually don't know of too many. There are some out there, and to be quite honest, they're a bit older books too. I haven't seen a whole lot of new books. And then how to break cycles that do not serve us. That's one of the things I said is like, one is just start to get really curious about those. You've got to be able to identify them. And then it's a lot of reframing and then reframing those stories. And then a lot of like really practicing, like putting it into application. That's a really good one. Of course, hypnosis is always a great way to go too. If you notice that logically, like it, but you keep finding yourself running the same rhetoric or running the same story, then we can rewrite that, right? Or we can pull out the root and then implement a new more empowering thought. And let's see. But I will come back to that one. Let me see if I missed any other questions. Yeah, don't stir the pot, Olga says, has been one of the things that she's learned. I've heard that too. So, all right. I don't think there's any more questions. So thank you again. Again, if you have feedback, let me know. Drop into my DMs. Feel free to book call with me. Thank you, everyone, and have a blessed day. Bye now.